Since the dawn of humanity, mysterious symbols have been etched in stone, woven into works of art, and passed down through secret rituals. They were not merely ornaments or artistic expressions. They were a hidden language, created for those who dared to decipher it. These signs carry secrets that defy time, clues that not only connect the human being to the divine but also offer a map for the transformation of the mind and soul. But what exactly are these symbols trying to tell us? What is the true purpose of such an intricate and enigmatic language? Perhaps it is to teach us that the most important construction we can undertake is not external but internal. If this is true, how can we begin to build our own inner temple? Imagine being tasked with a grand undertaking, building a temple not made of stone but of something infinitely deeper, the essence of the human spirit. This is the call of the builder, the central symbol of initiatic traditions, especially in Freemasonry. Yet this call is not exclusive to those who belong to secret orders. It is a universal invitation, a journey that all of us, consciously or not, embark on throughout life. The builder, in essence, is not merely an architect in the literal sense. He is a craftsman of himself, someone who understands that the external world is only a reflection of what lies within us. For this reason, he seeks to refine his own soul, polish his values, adjust his intentions, and little by little, construct an inner temple capable of withstanding the trials of time. But how does one begin this construction when the tools seem so obscure and the plans so complex? In Masonic symbolism, the builder is guided by tools that, at first glance, appear simple: the square, the compass, and the all-seeing eye. However, each of these carries a profound meaning. The square is not just a piece of metal used to measure angles. It symbolizes moral uprightness, the ability to align our actions with our principles. The compass, in turn, teaches us to seek balance in everything we do, to measure our choices, and to live with moderation. And the all-seeing eye? This is the symbol of awakened consciousness, the inner vision that allows us to perceive the invisible patterns shaping our reality. But what does it truly mean to build an inner temple? Is it something physical or purely spiritual? This is where the builder encounters the essence of the challenge. He discovers that the construction of his temple begins with the most important foundation: his character. Each stone he places symbolizes a virtue: honesty, courage, patience, and humility. Without these foundations, the entire temple would collapse at the first breath of adversity. Even so, this construction does not occur without difficulties. Like any grand work, it faces resistance. And this resistance does not come only from the external world, challenges, criticisms, or circumstances, but also from the internal world. How many times do our own thoughts sabotage us? How often do our emotions throw us off balance? The builder quickly realizes that his greatest enemies may be himself, his doubts, his fears, and his impulsive actions. At this point, the builder begins to confront the three great challenges of life: thought, emotion, and action. These forces, while shaping his journey, can easily lead him astray. Thought is the creative energy that can guide or confuse. Emotion is the fuel that can inspire or consume. And action, ultimately, is the movement that can build or destroy. How can these three forces be aligned? The builder realizes that his first lesson is to learn to discipline his mind. He understands that disordered thoughts create fertile ground for doubt and indecision. But how can one cultivate clear and constructive thoughts amid an avalanche of information and external influences? The answer begins with silence. Not external silence, but internal silence. It is necessary to create a space of stillness where the mind can rest and reorganize itself. The second lesson is to learn to deal with emotions. At first, he is driven by intense passions, sometimes inspired, sometimes disheartened. But he soon realizes that unchecked emotions are like rivers that overflow, flooding everything around them. Mastering emotions does not mean suppressing them, but channeling them in a way that drives the construction of the temple. How can the force of an emotion like anger or sadness be used to transform oneself into something better? Finally, the builder confronts action. It is through action that he puts his intentions into practice and materializes his visions. However, acting without clarity or purpose can be as destructive as not acting at all. How often do we make thoughtless decisions that lead to unwanted consequences? The builder learns that acting wisely means aligning his actions with his values and principles. Thus, The construction of the inner temple progresses, stone by stone, lesson by lesson. But is the builder truly prepared to deal with the forces that oppose his work? External difficulties, the criticism of others, life's unforeseen events, are still easy to identify. But what about the subtle forces operating within him? How can he face the shadow that we all carry? Every step taken by this builder is an invitation for us to reflect on our own journey. Are we building with solidity, or are we merely placing stones without a clear purpose? Do we know the tools at our disposal? And most importantly, are we listening to the call of the builder in our own lives? Since the dawn of time, light and darkness have been seen as opposing forces, one illuminating the path, while the other conceals the unknown. But what if these two forces were not rivals, but indispensable partners on our journey of self-discovery? For the builder, light and darkness are more than abstract concepts. They are fundamental elements of his transformation. It is not about choosing one or the other, but about learning to navigate between both, recognizing the role each plays in constructing the inner temple. Darkness, often associated with fear and uncertainty, carries a profound purpose. For the builder, it is not a threat but a portal. In the silence of darkness, when all external distractions dissipate, he is confronted with his purest essence. This encounter is not always comfortable, as it is there that truths we prefer to ignore reside, along with the fears we avoid and the desires we suppress. But how can one escape oneself? Isn't this very escape the reason behind so much internal turmoil? On the other hand, light emerges as a revealing force. It brings clarity, illuminates the path, and exposes what was hidden. However, it can also be challenging, for what light reveals is not always easy to accept. How often do we avoid looking directly at our weaknesses or responsibilities, preferring the comfortable blindness of a functional darkness? The builder soon realizes that light is not merely a relief, it is a call to action, an invitation to adjust, correct, and grow. Throughout his journey, the builder discovers that light and darkness possess a dynamic flow. A period of darkness may be necessary to reflect, absorb, and process. It is there that the seeds of understanding germinate. But eventually, light appears, not to create something new, but to reveal what has been nurtured in the silence. This cyclical interaction teaches the builder that balance is not static. It is a continuous movement between these two states. Darkness, contrary to common belief, can bring comfort. It is a moment of pause, a necessary interval to reassess and reconnect. In the void, the builder realizes that creation does not begin with matter but with intention. Just as a sculptor envisions the work before carving the stone, the builder must use darkness as a planning space where his ideas and values begin to take shape. However, light also has its traps. When the builder is overwhelmed by too much light, be it information, responsibilities, or external demands, he realizes he can become just as lost as in the darkness. Excessive light does not illuminate, it blinds. So how can one avoid being overwhelmed by this oppressive clarity? Here, the builder learns the value of moderation. Not all light is useful, and not all darkness is harmful. To deepen this understanding, the builder turns his attention to the paradox of these forces. Darkness can be as revealing as light, but in a different way. It is within darkness that he finds the space to listen to his soul without the distractions of the external world. It is there that he learns to distinguish his true motivations from the masks he has constructed over time. Is it possible to achieve true clarity without first passing through this state of introspection? Light, in turn, is not just a symbol of understanding but also of courage. It demands that the builder face the fruits of his introspection. It is futile to find answers in darkness if they are not brought into the light to be worked on and applied. This cycle, from darkness to insight and from insight to light, becomes the engine of the builder's progress. Even so, the builder realizes that dealing with these forces requires making conscious choices. It is not always time to seek the light, just as it is not always appropriate to plunge into darkness. There are moments when deep introspection is the answer, while in others, clear and determined action is needed. The key lies in developing the discernment necessary to know which path to follow at each moment. This process of discernment is not simple. The builder learns that the harmony between light and darkness is not a destination but a daily practice. In every situation, he is called to reassess, adjust, and find a new point of balance. It is not a mechanical task, but an exercise in mindfulness, where he learns to recognize the internal signs that indicate whether to advance or retreat. Along the way, he discovers that light and darkness are not separate entities. They interpenetrate, coexist, and shape one another. Light is only perceived because darkness exists as contrast. Similarly, darkness becomes meaningful because it holds the promise of light. This understanding gives the builder a new perspective. He does not need to fear either force, for both are indispensable parts of his journey. Finally, the builder understands that the true alchemy of light and darkness occurs within himself. Darkness represents his inner challenges, his shadows, while light reflects his consciousness and growth. When he stops fighting against these forces and begins to work with them, he discovers a new level of power and resilience. But what about us? Have we accepted darkness in our lives as a natural process of learning? Are we using light to transform ourselves or merely to hide what we do not want to face? The builder leaves a clear message. Light and darkness are not just metaphors, they are teachers, and it is up to us to learn from them. By understanding this lesson, the builder prepares for the next challenge, balancing not only the forces within himself but also the fundamental pillars that sustain his existence: thought, emotion, and action. The construction of any temple, whether physical or spiritual, requires solid foundations. For the builder, these foundations are represented by the three essential pillars of existence: thought, emotion, and action. But contrary to what many might think, these forces are not static, nor are they automatically in balance. They are in constant motion, interacting, clashing, and ultimately shaping the essence of who we are. Thought is the architect of the temple. It drafts the plans, organizes ideas, and envisions what could be built. Everything we see in our reality began first as a thought. However, the builder soon discovers that thought, if uncontrolled, can become a prison. He observes how his mind, filled with doubts and worries, can create a labyrinth of uncertainties. How often do we become trapped in incessant thoughts that paralyze us? Are we not drowning in our own minds? To address this, the builder begins to discipline his thoughts. He realizes that not every thought deserves attention, and that cultivating clear focus is essential to building something solid. Just as an architect does not include every possible idea in their design, the builder learns to select the thoughts that strengthen his journey and to let go of those that weaken him. Thinking, he discovers, is a skill to be developed, not an automatic process. But thought alone is not enough. It needs to be fueled by something more visceral: emotion. If thought is the architect, emotion is the fire that warms the builder's soul. It is what brings the plan to life, transforming an abstract desire into a tangible drive. But the builder soon realizes that emotions can be both allies and enemies. How can one handle fire without being burned? The builder understands that his emotions do not arise out of nowhere. Each emotion is like a message carrying hidden meaning. Fear, for example, might be alerting him to a real danger or simply reflecting an unfounded concern. Anger, so often feared, can become a transformative force when channeled to defend what is just. Thus, he decides to observe his emotions not as enemies but as teachers. What are they trying to say? What can I learn from them? Still, the builder knows that emotions without direction can be destructive. For this reason, he learns to channel them into something greater. Joy, gratitude, and even sadness can be transformed into fuel for building the inner temple. Instead of suppressing his emotions, he uses them to strengthen his emotional foundation, allowing them to become tools rather than barriers. The third pillar, action, is where everything takes form. What good is it to think and feel deeply if nothing is done? Action is the builder's hammer, the movement that raises the stones of his temple. But just as a poorly aimed strike can crack the stone, impulsive action can destroy years of work. Are we acting with purpose, or are we merely reacting to our surroundings? The builder realizes that true action is guided by intention. He understands that every movement must coherently reflect his thoughts and emotions. When he acts without thinking, his decisions lead to consequences that undermine his work. When he thinks too much and does not act, he remains stagnant. Action, then, is the point where all elements converge. It is where what is within manifests in the external world. But the builder's greatest lesson is not in understanding the pillars individually, but in grasping the dynamic between them. He realizes that his thoughts, emotions, and actions are in constant dialogue. When he thinks clearly, his emotions calm, and his actions become more directed. When his emotions are in balance, his thoughts flow more easily, and his actions carry greater impact. But what happens when one of these pillars conflicts with the others? Throughout his journey, the builder realizes that these conflicts are not failures but opportunities. When his thoughts lead him to doubt, he learns to seek clarity. When his emotions become intense, he views them as an opportunity to deepen his self-awareness. And when his actions do not reflect his values, he asks himself, "What can I do differently?" These conflicts, though uncomfortable, are necessary for growth. More importantly, the builder realizes that his pillars are in constant evolution. His thoughts mature over time, his emotions deepen as he faces challenges, and his actions gain greater purpose as he learns from his mistakes. Isn't it true that, like the builder, we are all works in progress? However, balance among these pillars is not automatic. It requires patience and vigilance. The builder must constantly reevaluate his intentions. Why am I thinking this? Why am I feeling this? What do I hope to achieve with this action? These questions become his compass, guiding him toward deeper alignment. Additionally, the builder notices that these pillars not only shape his internal life but also affect the world around him. When his thoughts, emotions, and actions are in harmony, he projects balance to those around him. His words inspire, his attitude strengthens, and his presence brings peace. After all, are we not all influenced by the energy of those around us? He understands that the pillars of thought, emotion, and action are not just tools for building but also reflections of who he is. Each stone he places in his inner temple is a reflection of his choices. And while balance is a continuous goal, the simple act of seeking this alignment already transforms him into a more conscious builder. With his pillars strengthened, he knows he is ready to take the next step. His journey now leads him to a new stage, the staircase of mastery, where each step brings him closer to a higher level of understanding and self-transcendence. The image of a staircase has always evoked the idea of ascension and progress. Yet, in esoteric tradition, the staircase represents much more than a simple upward path. For the builder, it is a symbol of personal transformation, where each step invites him to overcome challenges, learn lessons, and expand his consciousness. Climbing this staircase is not merely a physical or mental effort, it is a call to master oneself in every aspect. The staircase begins with two pillars that support its foundation. These pillars represent the duality of existence, light and darkness, chaos and order, internal and external. They remind the builder that ascension is only possible when he accepts and balances these opposing forces. Without understanding that life is composed of polarities, the journey becomes stagnant. After all, how can one ascend without understanding the ground beneath their feet? As the builder places his foot on the first step, he realizes he is not simply climbing a physical structure but entering a process of self-mastery. Each step represents a specific area of human knowledge and experience that must be understood and integrated. This is not a path for hurried steps. It is a staircase that demands attention and awareness with every movement. The first 7 steps, in esoteric tradition, represent the classical fields of knowledge: grammar, rhetoric, logic, arithmetic, geometry, music, and astronomy. However, these are not merely technical or academic disciplines. They reflect internal processes. For example, grammar teaches the importance of structuring our words, but it also symbolizes the organization of our thoughts. Rhetoric, in turn, reminds us of the power of expressing our truths with clarity and intention. Logic, the third step, teaches the builder to think clearly and with discernment. But are we always logical? How often do we allow emotions or impulses to lead us astray? This step requires the builder to examine his beliefs and identify the errors or contradictions that block his progress. The next step, arithmetic, seems simple at first glance, but it holds a deeper meaning. It represents the need for balance and proportion in everything we do. Isn't it true that in life, either excess or lack can destabilize us? The builder realizes that even the smallest imbalance can compromise the stability of his staircase. Then comes geometry, which for the builder symbolizes universal order. It is a reminder that everything in creation follows precise patterns, and his own life is no exception. But how can he align with this order when chaos seems to reign? He learns that by observing and respecting the patterns around him, whether social, spiritual, or natural, he begins to walk in harmony with the flow of life. The sixth step is music, which transcends the limits of the intellect. Music is not merely sound, it is rhythm, harmony, and vibration. It connects us to the invisible, teaching that there is a greater symphony in everything we do. For the builder, music is a call to awareness that his journey is not just a mechanical effort but a dance between striving and surrender. And finally, the seventh step, astronomy. Here, the builder is invited to look toward the cosmos, to the stars that have guided travelers since time immemorial. But he is also reminded to look inward, to the universe that exists within his own soul. After all, aren't the same laws that govern the macrocosm also present in the microcosm? As the builder climbs these initial steps, he realizes they are not merely linear stages but cycles. Each time he revisits one of these steps, he understands it more deeply. It is like gazing at the same starry sky on different nights. Though the view seems familiar, each observation brings new insights. However, the staircase does not end at these 7 steps. Higher up, he encounters 5 steps that represent the senses: sight, hearing, touch, taste, and smell. These senses, which we often take for granted, are the tools we use to interact with the world. But are they reliable? How often do our eyes deceive us, our words mislead us, or our sensations distract us? The builder understands that the senses must be refined. They should not be seen merely as ways to perceive the external world, but also as windows to explore his inner self. Sight, for example, can be used to perceive the beauty around us, but also to look honestly at our flaws. Hearing is not just for listening to sounds, but for hearing silence, where many answers lie hidden. Finally, the builder reaches the last 3 steps. These are the most sacred, as they represent the triad that sustains all existence: body, mind, and spirit. These 3 aspects are not independent. They are interwoven in a continuous dance. The body is the vehicle, the mind is the driver, and the spirit is the destination. But how can these 3 aspects be aligned in a world that constantly pulls us away from our essence? The builder realizes that each step on the staircase is not just an ascent but an opportunity for self-discovery. Each challenge, each lesson, is a stone that strengthens him. He understands that the staircase is not just a path to the top, but a tool for finding balance and meaning at every stage of the journey. However, he also learns that the staircase is infinite. There is no final point where everything is complete. For every step he climbs, a new perspective opens, revealing that there is always more to explore, more to understand. Can we ever truly say we have finished our own staircase? With this understanding, the builder moves forward, knowing that the journey never truly ends. But he also knows he is not alone. The all-seeing eye, the most enigmatic symbol of his journey, watches from above, waiting to reveal the secrets he has yet to comprehend. At the summit of the builder's journey appears the most enigmatic and profound symbol of all, the all-seeing eye. Enclosed within a radiant triangle, it gazes with a vision that transcends the physical, pierces the veil of illusions, and reaches the very essence of those who contemplate it. But this is not merely a symbol of vigilance. For the builder, the eye is a portal to higher consciousness, a compass guiding him toward a greater purpose. The all-seeing eye is, above all, a reflection. It reveals nothing that the builder does not already carry within himself. In facing it, he is confronted with his own truth, raw, unfiltered, and unadorned. It is the moment he perceives himself as he truly is, without the masks he has created for the world and often for himself. But are we prepared to see ourselves with such honesty? How often do we avoid this encounter, preferring to hide behind excuses and illusions? The triangle surrounding the eye carries equally powerful significance. It symbolizes the integration of 3 essential forces: body, mind, and spirit. The builder realizes that without this harmony, his vision will always be incomplete, limited by internal imbalances. But the triangle also holds another layer of meaning. It connects the past, present, and future, reminding the builder that his choices affect not just the now but echo across the timeline of his life. In understanding this, He begins to see the eye not merely as an observer, but as a link between what was, what is, and what could be. This new awareness awakens a greater responsibility. The all-seeing eye is not merely a symbol of self-awareness, but also a guardian of purpose. It asks the builder, what are you creating beyond yourself? How do your choices impact the world around you? The builder understands that his journey is not just about constructing an inner temple, but also about how that temple can serve humanity, contributing to the grand universal design. Yet this clarity brings discomfort. The builder realizes that the eye not only illuminates his potential, but also exposes his shadows. It forces him to confront his failures, his omissions, and the times when he has acted without integrity. But rather than judging him, the eye offers an opportunity, the chance to acknowledge these mistakes, learn from them, and redirect his path. Do we have the courage to admit our failures? Is it not easier to blame others or external circumstances? The all-seeing eye also imparts a powerful lesson about vulnerability. It reminds the builder that to grow, he must accept his limitations. Vulnerability is not a weakness, but a portal to transformation. It allows him to look at himself with compassion, recognizing that true courage lies not in being perfect, but in continuing the journey despite imperfections. Still, the builder realizes that the eye does not reveal everything. There are aspects of the mystery that remain hidden, even for those who reach the top of the staircase. And this is not a flaw, it is part of the process. The eye teaches that it is not necessary to know or understand everything to move forward. Sometimes, walking in uncertainty is where faith and trust in the purpose become most important. How do we face the unknown without letting it paralyze us? The triangle surrounding the eye also offers another lesson. It reminds the builder that clear vision requires balance. Vision must not be dominated solely by the body, desires, the mind, intellect, or the spirit, abstraction. Each of these aspects must support the others, forming a stable foundation for true perception. How often do we allow ourselves to be swayed by one aspect alone, ignoring the balance that makes us whole? As the builder reflects, he realizes that the all-seeing eye also represents intuitive wisdom. It is not a force that judges or punishes, but a silent guide that offers insights when the builder is willing to listen. This listening is not done with the ears, but with the soul, a quieting of the internal noise that allows higher wisdom to emerge. How often do we ignore this inner voice, distracted by the clamor of the world around us? The builder discovers that the eye is also a reminder of interconnectedness. He understands that his actions, thoughts, and emotions do not exist in isolation. Everything he does reverberates in the world, like ripples spreading across a lake. Every decision he makes contributes to the balance or imbalance of the whole. This prompts him to ask, am I building something that benefits only myself, or something that contributes to the greater good? And then, he understands that the all-seeing eye is not there merely to watch, but to inspire. It does not demand perfection but intentionality. It teaches that true vision is not about controlling or comprehending everything, but about acting with wisdom and purpose, even when the future is uncertain. In the end, the builder sees the all-seeing eye as a symbol of trust. He trusts that even when he cannot see the entire path, he is in the process of creating something meaningful. He trusts that his failures do not define who he is, but what he does with them. He trusts that by building his inner temple with care and integrity, he is contributing to something far greater than himself. With this new perspective, he turns his attention back to the work still unfinished, the inner temple. He knows that the all-seeing eye is not the end of his journey, but the beginning of a life lived with greater clarity, purpose, and humility. But what is this inner temple he seeks to build? How can this temple be a reflection of everything he has learned and, at the same time, a foundation for the greatness that is yet to come? At the end of his journey, the builder understands that all the wisdom gained, all the challenges faced, and all the lessons learned converge toward a single purpose: the construction of his inner temple. This temple is not made of stone, nor is it visible to the world. It is alive, dynamic, a reflection of the builder's essence, and with every choice, every thought, and every virtue cultivated, it takes form. Unlike a monumental cathedral built to be admired, the inner temple is more than a static space. It breathes, grows, and adapts to the builder's inner changes. Every experience, whether a victory or a fall, leaves its mark on the invisible walls of this sacred space. But do we recognize the importance of nurturing and caring for this living temple? Or do we leave it abandoned, unattended, as we become lost in the distractions of the world? The builder realizes that this temple is not just a refuge of peace, but also a place of healing. He discovers that even when life wears him down and his construction feels unstable, the temple welcomes him. It is there that he finds sanctuary to reflect, restore his strength, and start again. Thus, he learns that his failures are not the end, but opportunities for reconstruction. Every misplaced stone can be adjusted, and every crack is an invitation to strengthen the structure. But the temple is not just personal. It is also connected to the whole. The builder understands that the inner temple is like a torch, radiating light to those around him. Every effort to strengthen his inner construction creates ripples that extend beyond him. His inner peace, harmony, and strength inspire others to look within themselves. He reflects, "What am I projecting into the world through the temple I am building within me?" At the heart of the temple, he finds something even deeper. This is the place where he connects to the sacred. The temple's roof, in all its symbolism, is not just a shelter. It is a portal that links him to the infinite, to the divine. Here, the builder discovers that his journey is not just about himself, but about being part of something greater. He realizes that, by looking upward at this symbolic roof, he is reminded that his work is both earthly and spiritual. Can we see that by caring for the temple within us, we also align ourselves with the universal flow that connects all things? This roof, however, is only held up because the columns he has built are firm. Body, mind, and spirit, the three elements the builder learned to harmonize throughout his journey, are the foundation that keeps his connection to the divine stable. He realizes that without this harmony, the entire temple would be unbalanced, and the greater purpose would be lost. How can we balance these fundamental aspects of our existence amidst the pressures of the modern world? As he works on his construction, the builder discovers that the temple is also a mirror. What he builds within himself reflects outward into the world. When he cultivates inner peace, he projects balance around him. When he neglects his temple, the inner chaos manifests in his relationships, his actions, and everything he touches. He understands that to transform the world, he must start by transforming himself. Isn't it true that the greatest external changes always begin with small internal adjustments? Furthermore, the builder realizes that the inner temple is not just a space for the present. It is an eternal work whose purpose transcends his earthly existence. Every stone laid, every virtue cultivated, contributes to a legacy that will echo beyond his life. Just as physical temples have inspired generations, the builder's inner temple has the potential to inspire those who come after him. He reflects, "Am I building something that will endure? Am I leaving a legacy of light for others to follow?" But the true beauty of the inner temple is not in its perfection. It is not an immutable monument, but a space of constant learning and transformation. The builder realizes that his work will never be complete. There will always be something to adjust, something to improve, something to expand. And this does not discourage him. On the contrary, it gives purpose to his existence. He understands that the true value of the temple is not in its final finish, but in the ongoing act of building it. The temple, for the builder, becomes a space for reconnection with his essence and a reminder that his journey is not just about him. It is about how his construction can bring more light to the world. He realizes that by caring for himself, by cultivating balance and harmony, he is, in fact, contributing to the construction of a world that is more whole and more connected. Thus, as he contemplates the temple he is building, the builder commits to continue. He understands that every choice, every thought, every virtue he decides to cultivate is a stone that reinforces his structure. He knows the work will never be finished, but that is not a problem. It is the essence of the human purpose. The builder concludes that the inner temple is the greatest gift we can give to ourselves and to the world. It is at once a refuge, a tool for transformation, and an eternal legacy. Each of us has the power to shape it, adjust it, and leave it as a unique work of art. But are we dedicating the time and attention it deserves? Throughout this journey, we have learned that the most important construction we can undertake is not made of stone or tangible materials, but of values, virtues, and choices that shape the invisible temple within us. The inner temple is a reflection of who we are and, at the same time, a space where we can continually transform ourselves. It is the meeting point between introspection and purpose, between the individual and the collective, between the human and the divine. But this construction is not just for ourselves. When the inner temple is cared for and nurtured, it becomes a source of light for the world, a solid foundation from which we can inspire and transform everything around us. It reminds us of our responsibility not only to live with integrity, but to leave a legacy of balance and wisdom for those who come after us. If you're interested in exploring more about spirituality, I've specially selected some videos filled with profound knowledge and fascinating discoveries that you'll love. Just click on one of them. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel to continue this journey of self-discovery and spiritual learning. Your commitment to knowledge is the first step toward transforming your reality.